Have you ever sat in complete silence, truly alone, and felt more alive than you've ever felt before? More connected to your own heartbeat than to any other person's touch? You see, we live in a world that's constantly telling us we're incomplete without someone else. The movies, the songs, the endless stream of advice from well-meaning friends and family, they all paint a picture of life that puts partnership at the center of happiness. But today I want to challenge everything you think you know about what it means to live a fulfilled life. I remember standing in my kitchen one evening, the house completely silent except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator. I was 52, newly divorced, and according to society's standards, I should have been miserable. But in that moment, stirring a pot of soup I had made just for myself, I felt something profound, a deep, resonating peace that I had never experienced in any relationship. That's what we're going to explore together today. The revolutionary idea that living alone in your 50s isn't just acceptable. It might be the most transformative, enriching experience of your life. This isn't about being anti-relationship or dismissing the beauty of partnership. It's about discovering a truth that society rarely acknowledges, that the relationship with yourself can be the most profound connection you'll ever experience. Think about it, Nick. How many times have you compromised your own truth to keep peace in a relationship? How often have you dimmed your own light to make someone else comfortable? How many dreams have you tucked away because they didn't fit neatly into the partnership you were trying to maintain? What I'm about to share with you isn't just theory or wishful thinking. It's a proven path to the kind of fulfillment that doesn't depend on another person's presence or approval. It's about discovering that the very thing we've been taught to fear, being alone, might actually be the doorway to our greatest liberation. You see, when you strip away the noise of constant companionship, when you remove the comfortable distractions of shared routines and mutual obligations, something magical begins to happen. You start to hear your own voice again, not the voice that's been carefully modulated to maintain harmony in a relationship, but your authentic voice, the one that's been waiting patiently to be heard. Living alone in your 50s isn't about isolation. It's about integration. It's about finally having the space and freedom to integrate all the parts of yourself that you've kept separate. The dreamer and the pragmatist, the artist and the accountant, the part of you that wants to dance until dawn, and the part that craves silent meditation at sunrise. When you live alone, you don't have to choose between these selves or justify their existence to anyone. But let me be clear, this journey isn't always easy. Society has programmed us to view solitude through the lens of lack, as if choosing to live alone somehow means we've failed at life's great game of partnership. I'm here to tell you that nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, choosing to live alone in your 50s might be the bravest, most self-aware decision you'll ever make. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you truly learn to embrace solitude, when you master the art of being alone without being lonely, you actually become more capable of authentic connection than ever before. Because you're no longer connecting from a place of need or fear or societal expectation, and you're connecting from a place of wholeness, of choice, of genuine desire to share rather than desperate need to be completed. In the next hour, I'm going to share with you the profound insights and practical wisdom I've gathered about this journey. We'll explore how living alone can become a masterclass in self-discovery and how the very challenges that seem most daunting, eating alone, traveling alone, celebrating alone, can become your greatest teachers. Let me share something powerful with you, something that transformed my understanding of solitude forever. In our society, we often confuse being alone with being lonely, but they're as different as silence and emptiness. Silence can be rich, purpose, filled with possibility. Emptiness is the void we feel when we're disconnected from ourselves. And ironically, you can feel that emptiness even in a room full of people, even lying next to someone you've shared your life with for decades. The first profound gift of living alone in your 50s is the gift of unfiltered authenticity. When there's no one else in your space, no one to accommodate, no one to impress or please or consider, you begin to discover who you truly are beneath all the roles you've played. And let me tell you, This discovery is nothing short of revolutionary. Remember how as children, we would spend hours lost in our own worlds. We'd read books that captivated us, pursue hobbies that fascinated us, dream dreams that seemed perfectly possible. Somewhere along the way, many of us lost that pure connection to our own interests and passions. We began to shape our lives around others' expectations and needs. But living alone in your 50s offers you the chance to reclaim that pure, unfiltered connection to your own spirit. The second gift is the power of sacred silence. In a world that's constantly buzzing with noise, opinions, and distractions, the ability to sit comfortably in silence becomes a superpower. When you live alone, you learn to distinguish between different kinds of silence. There's the morning silence that feels like possibility, the afternoon silence that feels like peace, the evening silence that feels like reflection. Each has its own texture, its own teaching, its own treasure to offer. But here's what nobody tells you about living alone in your 50s. It's not just about what you subtract from your life. It's about what you add. When you're not pouring your energy into maintaining a relationship, you suddenly have vast reservoirs of time and attention to invest in your own growth. This is when many people discover talents they never knew they had, passions they'd forgotten, dreams they'd shelved decades ago. You might be thinking, but what about the practical challenges? What about the everyday logistics of living alone? Let me address this head on. Yes, there are moments when you have to be both the person who notices the leaky faucet and the person who fixes it. You have to be both the one who cooks the meal and the one who appreciates it. But in these very challenges lies an incredible opportunity for growth and self-reliance. Each time you solve a problem on your own, each time you figure out a new skill or overcome a challenge, you build what I call soul muscle. Just like physical muscle, soul muscle grows stronger with use. And just like physical exercise, what starts as difficult becomes easier, even enjoyable. The third gift of living alone is what I call emotional sovereignty. When you live alone, you become the master of your emotional climate. You're no longer subject to someone else's moods, no longer required to process another person's emotional weather along with your own. This doesn't mean you become cold or disconnected. Quite the opposite. You become more capable of genuine empathy because you're not exhausted from constant emotional navigation in your own space. Think about this. How many times have you censored your own joy because someone else was having a bad day? How often have you pushed down your own sadness because it didn't fit with your partner's schedule or plans? In solitude, your emotions have room to breathe, to exist in their full authenticity, to complete their natural cycles without interruption or judgment. But perhaps the most extraordinary gift of living alone in your 50s is the opportunity to develop what I call radical self-trust. When you live alone, you begin to trust your own judgment in a deeper way. You learn to hear and honor your intuition. You develop an unshakable faith in your ability to handle whatever life presents. This kind of self-trust isn't something that comes automatically with age. It comes from experience, from facing challenges and discovering that you can indeed handle them. It comes from making decisions based on your own wisdom rather than compromising to keep peace or maintain harmony in a relationship. And here's something remarkable. When you develop this level of self-trust, your relationships with others actually improve. Because you're no longer coming from a place of need or dependency, you can connect with others from a place of genuine choice and authenticity. The art of living alone in your 50s isn't about closing yourself off from love or connection. It's about opening yourself to a different kind of love story, one where you are both the lover and the beloved, both the seeker and the sought. It's about discovering that the companionship you've been seeking outside yourself has been within you all along, waiting to be recognized and embraced. Many people ask me, but what about the future? What about growing old alone? This is where we need to challenge our assumptions about what it means to age well. The research actually shows that people who have developed strong self-reliance and independence often age more gracefully than those who've remained dependent on others for their sense of well-being. Now let's explore what I call the sacred architecture of a life beautifully lived alone. You see, when you choose to live alone in your 50s, you're not just choosing a living arrangement. You're choosing to become the architect of your own inner and outer world. And this is where the magic truly begins. Consider for a moment how many of your daily habits, your routines, even your thoughts have been shaped by accommodation, by the need to fit your life around someone else's patterns and preferences. When you live alone, you have the opportunity to design every aspect of your life according to your own natural rhythms and deepest desires. This brings us to what I call the awakening of authentic time. When you live alone, time takes on a different quality. You begin to experience what I call soul time rather than a clock time. Soul time is when you allow your natural rhythms to emerge. Maybe you discover you're most creative at midnight, or that your spirit comes alive at dawn. In solitude, you can honor these rhythms without explanation or apology. But here's something crucial to understand. Living alone successfully isn't about filling every moment with activity to distract yourself from being alone. It's about learning to find richness in simplicity, depth in silence, and companionship in solitude. It's about discovering that you can be your own best friend, your own trusted advisor, your own source of comfort and joy. I want to share with you what I call the A7 pillars of solitary grace. These are the fundamental principles that transform living alone from a circumstance into a sacred practice. The first pillar is intentional solitude. This means choosing to be alone rather than feeling like you've ended up alone. It's about recognizing that solitude is not a consolation prize for those who haven't found partnership. It's a valid, powerful life choice that can lead to extraordinary personal growth. The second pillar is a spiritual self-sufficiency. This doesn't mean you don't need other people. We're all interconnected and relationships remain important, but it means you've developed the ability to meet your own emotional and spiritual needs. You've learned to be your own source of comfort, your own source of wisdom, your own source of validation. The third pillar is creative sovereignty. When you live alone, your home becomes your canvas, your life becomes your masterpiece. You have the freedom to express yourself fully in your space, in your schedule, in your choices. This might mean turning your living room into an art studio, or creating a meditation sanctuary in your bedroom, or designing your days according to your own unique creative rhythm. The fourth pillar is emotional alchemy. This is the art of transforming loneliness into solitude, transforming empty spaces into sacred spaces, transforming quiet moments into opportunities for deep connection with yourself. It's about learning to alchemize challenging emotions without relying on another person to help process them. The fifth pillar is a physical autonomy. This means taking full responsibility for your physical well-being. Not just exercise and nutrition, but learning to be comfortable in your own skin. Learning to enjoy physical pleasures alone, whether that's dancing in your living room or taking yourself on adventures. The sixth pillar is a social authentication. This means creating social connections that truly resonate with your authentic self rather than maintaining relationships out of habit or obligation. When you live alone, you have the opportunity to curate your social life with intention and purpose. And the seventh pillar, perhaps the most powerful, is what I call mystical marriages. The deep, committed relationship you develop with your own soul. This is about making a sacred commitment to yourself, about treating yourself with the same devotion, respect, and care that you might have once expected from a life partner. But let me be clear about something. Embracing these pillars doesn't mean you never experience moments of doubt or loneliness. Those feelings will still come. The difference is that you learn to see them not as enemies to be avoided, but as teachers bringing valuable messages about your needs and growth edges. In fact, one of the most powerful aspects of living alone in your 50s is that you finally have the wisdom to understand that uncomfortable emotions aren't emergencies that need to be fixed. They're simply part of the rich tapestry of human experience. When you live alone, you develop what I call emotional stamina, the ability to sit with both comfortable and uncomfortable feelings without needing to change them or escape from them. This brings us to a crucial understanding about the nature of fulfillment. Many people believe that fulfillment comes from having someone to share your life with. But what if the deepest fulfillment comes from being able to fully share your life with yourself? What if the greatest romance isn't about finding someone who completes you, but about becoming so complete in yourself that you can truly celebrate your own company? Think about this. So when you're in a relationship, it's easy to use the other person as a buffer between you and your own depths. Their presence can become a distraction from the soul work you're meant to do. But when you live alone, there's nowhere to hide from yourself. And in that nowhere to hide, you find everywhere to... Now let's talk about something that many people fear when considering a life alone. The myth of missing out. Society has conditioned us to believe that without a partner, we somehow experience life less fully. But I want to challenge that belief with what I've come to understand as the principles of profound presence. When you live alone in your 50s, you discover that presence isn't divided, it's multiplied. Every experience becomes more intense, more vivid, more meaningful because you're fully present with it. There's no negotiation about where to go for dinner, no compromise about how to spend a Sunday afternoon, no subtle tension about whose needs take priority. You're free to dive deep into each moment with your whole being. This brings us to what I call the 3 territories of transformation that become available when you live alone. The first territory is sacred space. Your home becomes more than just a living space. It becomes a sanctuary for yourself. Every object, every corner, every ritual you create becomes infused with meaning because it's a pure expression of your inner world. Think about this. When was the last time you walked into your home and felt absolute harmony with every single thing in it? When you live alone, this becomes possible. Your space becomes a physical manifestation of your inner peace, your creative spirit, your personal evolution. There's profound power in creating an environment that reflects and supports your true nature. The second territory is time sovereignty. Most people don't realize how much of their time is spent in subtle negotiations with others. Should we eat now or later? Watch this show or that one? Go out or stay in? When you live alone, time becomes fluid, organic, authentically yours. You can follow your energy when it rises and honor it when it ebbs. But here's the crucial understanding about time sovereignty. It's not about becoming self-indulgent or disconnected. It's about learning to move through time in a way that honors your natural rhythms while remaining engaged with the world. It's about discovering that when you're fully aligned with your own timing, you actually have more energy, more creativity, more to offer others. The third territory is what I call relationship alchemy. This is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of living alone. Many people assume that choosing to live alone means choosing against relationships. Nothing could be further from the truth. When you live alone, you actually become capable of forming deeper, more authentic connections with others precisely because you're not dependent on them for your sense of completeness. You see, when you're comfortable being alone, you stop treating relationships like life rafts and start treating them like sailing adventures, wonderful to embark upon but not essential for your survival. This shifts everything. Your friendships become richer because they're chosen rather than needed. Your family relationships transform because you're relating from wholeness rather than obligation. Even your romantic encounters, should you choose to have them, take on a different quality because you're coming from a place of genuine desire rather than emotional hunger. Let me share with you what I call the 5 freedoms that emerge when you master the art of living alone. First is the freedom from comparison. When you're not in a relationship, you stop measuring your life against other couples' lives. You begin to write your own story rather than trying to fit into someone else's narrative. The second freedom is from timing pressure. Society tells us there's the right times for everything, the right time to be married, the right time to have children, the right time to settle down. When you choose to live alone, you step outside these artificial timelines and into what I call soul timing, the natural unfolding of your life according to your own inner calendar. The third freedom is from emotional compromise. This doesn't mean becoming selfish or inconsiderate. Instead, it means developing such a strong relationship with your own emotional truth that you no longer need to dilute it or disguise it to keep peace in a relationship. The fourth freedom is from cultural expectations. Our society is built around couples, from restaurant seating to vacation packages to holiday celebrations. When you choose to live alone, you free yourself from these prescribed patterns and begin to create your own ways of moving through the world. The fifth freedom is what I call spiritual autonomy. This is the freedom to explore your own path of growth and enlightenment without having to synchronize it with someone else's journey. Your meditation practice, your spiritual studies, your personal rituals, all of these can evolve naturally according to your own inner guidance. But let me share something vital about these freedoms. They don't come automatically just because you live alone. They must be claimed, developed, practiced. This is where many people stumble. They find themselves alone and wait for these freedoms to appear, not realizing that solitude is not just a circumstance to be endured, but a practice to be mastered. This brings us to what I call the solitude skill set, the practical abilities that transform being alone from a situation you find yourself in to a life choice you embrace with joy. These skills include emotional self-regulation, robust self-care practices, financial independence, and what I call the social intelligence, the ability to create and maintain meaningful connections while honoring your need for solitude. As we draw our time together to a close, I want to share what I call the ultimate paradox of solitude. The more completely you learn to be alone, the more deeply you're able to connect with everyone and everything around you. Because when you're no longer using relationships to fill a void within yourself, you become capable of true communion with life itself. Think about the mighty oak tree standing alone in a field. It doesn't wish it were a forest. It doesn't apologize for taking up space. It doesn't question its right to reach for the sky or spread its roots deep into the earth. It simply is in all its magnificent solitude. And it being so completely itself, it creates space for entire ecosystems to thrive. This is what becomes possible when you master the art of living alone. You become like that oak tree, deeply rooted in your own nature, extending your branches toward the sky of your highest possibilities, creating shade and shelter for others, not from a place of obligation, but from the natural overflow of your self-contained wholeness. I want to share with you what I call the S-even promises of solitude. These are the gifts that unfold naturally when you fully embrace this path. The first promise is authenticity without apology. When you live alone, you gradually stop editing yourself. You no longer need to justify your choices, explain your preferences, or defend your decisions. The second promise is what I call sacred selfishness. This isn't about becoming self-centered or inconsiderate. It's about recognizing that taking care of yourself, honoring your needs, and following your dreams isn't selfish. It's essential. It's about understanding that the more fully you become yourself, the more you have to offer the world. The third promise is emotional mastery. Living alone teaches you to become skilled at managing your emotional landscape. You learn that feelings are like weather patterns. They come and go, and you don't need someone else to help you navigate them. You become your own emotional compass, your own storm shelter, your own sunny day. The fourth promise is creative liberation. When you live alone, your creative energy isn't split between managing a relationship and pursuing your passions. Your creative force becomes unified, focused, available for whatever calls to your soul. Whether that's writing, painting, gardening, or reimagining your entire life. Your creative energy is fully your own. The fifth promise is spiritual sovereignty. This is the freedom to follow your own path of awakening without needing to harmonize it with someone else's journey. Your meditation practice, your prayers, your rituals, all of these can evolve naturally according to your own inner guidance. The sixth promise is what I call relational clarity. When you're comfortable being alone, you develop an uncanny ability to recognize authentic connections. You no longer mistake need for love, convenience for compatibility, or habit for commitment. Your relationships become choices rather than necessities. And the seventh promise, perhaps the most profound, is the gift of self-realization. Living alone in your 50s can become a direct path to discovering who you truly are beneath all the roles you've played, all the compromises you've made, all the adaptations you've undertaken to fit into relationships. But here's what you need to understand. These promises aren't guarantees. They're possibilities that become probabilities when you approach solitude as a sacred practice rather than a circumstance to be endured. They unfold naturally when you stop waiting for life to happen to you and start happening to life. I want to share one final truth with you. One that took me years to fully understand. The quality of your life alone will be determined not by what you do, but by who you become in the process of doing it. It's not about filling your days with activities to distract yourself from being alone. It's about becoming so complete in yourself that every activity, whether shared or solitary, becomes an expression of your wholeness. You see, living alone in your 50s isn't a consolation prize. It's not what happens when other plans fall through. It's not a waiting room for the next relationship. It's a holy opportunity to discover who you are when you're not defining yourself in relation to someone else. It's a chance to find out what becomes possible when you stop waiting for life to begin and realize that this moment, this solitude, this sacred aloneness is life itself. Remember this. Every great spiritual teacher, every profound philosopher, every true innovator has understood the power of solitude. They knew that certain kinds of growth, certain revelations, certain awakenings are only possible when we have the courage to be alone with ourselves. As you leave here today, I want you to consider this possibility. What if the life you could create alone is more beautiful, more authentic, and more fulfilling than any life you could create from a place of needing someone else to complete you? What if the very thing you've been afraid of, being alone, is actually the doorway to the life you've always dreamed of but were afraid to claim? The choice is yours. You can view living alone as something that happened to you, or you can embrace it as something that happened for you. You can see it as an ending, or you can recognize it as a beginning. You can treat it as a waiting room for real life to begin, or you can understand that this is real life happening right now, offering you the extraordinary gift of becoming fully, magnificently, unapologetically yourself. The journey of living alone in your 50s isn't just about learning to be comfortable by yourself. It's about discovering that you are the gift you've been waiting for. It's about realizing that the love you've been seeking, the acceptance you've been craving, the validation you've been needing, all of these are available to you right now, not from someone else, but from your own awakened heart. Your solitude is not empty. It's full of infinite possibilities. Your alone time is not a punishment. It's a privilege. Your single status is not a problem to be solved. It's a gift to be opened again and again with wonder and gratitude. Welcome to the most amazing journey of your life, the journey home to yourself. As you step forward into this new chapter of your life, remember that you carry within you the wisdom of every experience you've ever had, the strength of every challenge you've overcome, and the potential of every dream you've ever dreamed. Your 50s aren't the twilight of your possibilities. They're the dawn of your greatest becoming. Every morning when you wake up alone in your bed, know that you're not just waking up to another day of solitude, you're waking up to another day of sovereignty. Every meal you eat alone isn't just a solo dinner. It's a feast of freedom. Every decision you make isn't just a choice. It's a declaration of your right to live life on your own terms. The world needs more people who've found their center, who have made peace with their solitude, who have turned their aloneness into all oneness. Because when you master the art of being alone, you become a lighthouse for others, showing them what's possible when you stop running from solitude and start embracing it as your greatest teacher. So I challenge you, go home tonight and look in the mirror. Look deep into your own eyes and make a sacred commitment to yourself. Promise yourself that you will stop waiting for life to begin and start living it fully right now. Promise yourself that you will stop seeing your solitude as a problem to be solved and start seeing it as a gift to be treasured. Promise yourself that you will become the love you've been looking for, the companion you've been seeking, the adventure you've been... Because the truth is, you are not just enough. You are everything. You are not just complete, you are infinite. You are not just living alone. You are living in alignment with your highest truth. And in that alignment, in that sacred solitude, in that holy communion with your own spirit, you will find not just contentment, not just peace, but a joy so profound it will transform every aspect of your existence. This is your moment. This is your time. This is your life, waiting to be lived fully, deeply, magnificently. Welcome home to yourself. Welcome home to your power. Welcome home to the love that has been waiting for you all along, the love that is you.